In this video, I really want to talk about how to catch bass in grass when you do not have any electronics. Now, this was a question that got asked to me just a few days ago on a video, and so I really want to go through how to locate fish in grass without electronics. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. It is December. We are closing in on Christmas here, and everything right now at Finn Fishing, from the USA made sun shirts, the bass hats, the new duck shorts, almost everything is 20% off, and a few items are 30% off right now. Also, anyone who buys over the course of December is going to be put into a drawing automatically to win one of 4 different prizes. So I'm actually giving away 2 one-of-a-kind bass hats. I'm also giving away an ARC Tharp Series grinder rod, a brand new bait cast rod. This is a great crankbait rod, and the grand prize is actually an ARC G7 reel. This, to me, is the best bait cast reel on the market. I have several of these, and I am blown away by just how good these bait cast reels are. But right now, one of these could be yours. All you got to do is simply buy something, whatever it may be, from Finn Fishing. Now, I'm going to leave some links down below, and I just want you guys to know that shopping at Finn Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel. I greatly appreciate all of you who have done so. Also, thank you to those of you who simply watch these videos. All right, let's talk about bass fishing in the grass when you don't have electronics. Now, this particular gentleman, he still fishes out of a boat, and so I am going to cater it a little bit to boats, but you can use this if you fish from the bank as well. So when you get to those bodies of water, and you know, I'll be the first to admit, like, I remember when I really started getting in, like, grass fishing is one of my favorite things to do now. But when I first started fishing a lot of grass, I remember, like, the first time I ever went down to Florida. And when you get to Florida, as Gerald Swindle, a professional fisherman, says, you have grass that grows from the hotel room to the middle of the lake. When you get to those bodies of water, there is grass everywhere. But it's not just in Florida. I mean, I've seen this up in Minnesota. I've seen it in New York. I've seen several lakes like that here in Ohio. I've seen it in Alabama. There's a lot of lakes out there that have a ton of vegetation, and it can be extremely overwhelming when you get to these bodies of water because there's simply so much grass. And if you do not have any electronics on your boat, it can take some time to kind of dial things in. So there's a couple of things that I want to say if you don't have any electronics and you're trying to fish grass. One, the first thing that I want to say is, when it comes to fishing grass without electronics, you really need to concentrate on emergent vegetation, which is vegetation that you can see with your own eyes. I mean, ones that come out of the water. I mean, vegetation like lily pads, reeds, you know, you have buggy whips, you have arrowheads, you have a lot of different types of grass that come out of the water. And the reason why I say to concentrate on those is, one, bass will be in emergent vegetation throughout the entire year. Throughout the entire year, you have bass. I mean, you can be in the hottest part of the summer and you will have bass in emergent vegetation. Now, when it comes to submergent vegetation, for example, like hydrilla and coontail and milfoil, this can be fairly difficult to navigate without any type of electronics. Really, when it comes to that, you're going to have to just fan cast around in areas and try to dial in where those bass are. Like, it just comes down to you're going to have to fish. But when it comes to, you know, emergent vegetation, there are some things that you can do that can really help you to simply eliminate a lot of water out there. And that is the best thing that you can do when you're fishing grass, is eliminate a lot of water. Now, the first thing that you want to do when it comes to eliminating grass is simply think about what time of the year it is. You know, is it the spring? Is it the summer? Is it the fall? And what are bass going to be doing in your body of water? I think for a lot of us anglers who fish a lot of the same water, we kind of know in our general area when bass are spawning. Whether we can see a lot of bass up shallow, or maybe you have buddies or like, oh yeah, bass are on beds, whatever it may be. And so with that being said, if you go to the body of water and you have, maybe it's a springtime and you think bass are spawning, the best thing that you can do is go to those areas that you think bass are spawning in. Like, I hate to make it sound so simple, but when you get to a body of, some bodies of water, if they have a lot of vegetation in them, they may be all different types of shapes and sizes. And there's typically going to be a main lake part of that lake. There's also going to be little creek arms, and there's going to be little coves, and there's going to be little pockets, right? So if you get to the body of water in the spring, I would suggest concentrating on those pockets, on those coves, on those creeks, because a lot of fish, you may catch fish out on the main lake, but if the majority of them are looking to spawn, then you can right off the bat eliminate a ton of water simply by going to areas where you think the bass are spawning. So, and then what happens is that the vegetation in those areas, whether it's lily pads or whether it's reeds, whatever it may be, that becomes the cover that the bass are in. So you're catching fish in that cover, but you first want to try to eliminate it. So sometimes it just really thinks, sometimes the best thing to do when you get to the body of water is almost imagine like the grass is not there, like there's no vegetation there. And try to think, where would bass be during this time of the year? Maybe you get there in the middle of summer. In the middle of summer, bass are going to be relating, again, more to the main lake. They're not going to be up in these pockets. Sure, you may catch some in pockets, some random resident fish, but you're going to be concentrating a little bit more on the main bodies of water, the main kind of body of water. And when it comes down to kind of that's like the first thing that I'm going to do when I get to the body. What time of the year is it? Where should the fish be? The next thing is all about simply covering water efficiently. I truly believe that the best anglers in the world simply know how to cover water more efficiently than a lot of other guys. Like that to me is what it all comes down to. If you look at the best guys in the world, they can cover water better than a lot of anglers. So if I get to the body of water, it's the springtime, bass should be pushing up shallow. The biggest thing that I'm going to do is pick up some sort of moving bait and try to fish around that vegetation, whether, again, it's lily pads, reeds, whatever it kind of be. Maybe it is submergent vegetation, but you can see it with your own eyes. I'm going to fish a lot of baits. Now, some of my favorite grass baits include chatterbaits. 100% a chatterbait has got to be on the front deck of your boat because it comes through grass extremely well and it works year round. A lipless crankbait can be really, really good. Other shallow baits like a Texas rig can be really, really good. I like to keep things really simple. And then other moving baits, I should say, before the Texas rig type stuff, is like a horny toad, some sort of top water bait that can come through grass really well. So I'm going to just simply start covering water. And I like to keep my boat pretty high. Like I like to try to, I'm going to make a long cast into that vegetation, whatever it may be, and reel my bait in, whatever it is, and get it to the boat, and then I'm gonna, I'm keeping the boat constantly moving. And all I'm really looking for in this situation is one bite. Just one bite is all I'm looking for. And if you guys have fished vegetation before, especially if you have caught numbers of bass in vegetation, almost 100% of the time when you have bass that are relating to grass, you will have bass that get schooled up in the grass. So what happens a lot of times is you may have this humongous area where there's a lot of little pockets and creeks, and you might think I'll catch one here, there. No, you'll go through, 3/4 of it and not catch a fish, and then there's a 50-yard section where you catch 10. This is what happens all the time, like literally all the time whenever you are fishing grass. And so with that being said, that is why I do not like to waste a lot of time when I'm fishing, especially grass, because you could be fishing a tremendous amount of dead water. I never want to slow down unless I feel like I'm not efficiently fishing the cover. I rarely like to slow down when I'm trying to locate fish. And what I mean by efficiently is that, like, for example, if you get to the body of water and it's maybe it's like 10 o'clock. And so it's not really kind of that morning bite time frame, and you get into some lily pads that are really thick. One thing that you could do is throw just on the outside of the lily pads, but you also may be thinking that bass are starting to transition in. And so if they're transitioning in, then you might either have to throw a frog on top, or you might have to punch through with some sort of Texas rig. But even if I'm fishing a Texas rig while locating fish, again, while trying to find them, I'm going to be making like a pitch here. The boat keeps moving. I'm going to make a pitch 10, 15 feet away. And all I'm looking for is that one bite. And then as soon as I get that bite, that is when you slow down. That is when you put the brakes on and really try to pick an area apart, because like I said, you might find a big wad of fish in a really small area. And so usually if I'm fishing a fast moving bait, you know, for me, I'm gonna put the Raptors on. But if you don't have electronics, I'm assuming you don't have Raptors or any kind of shallow water anchoring. Maybe you have a legit anchor. But anyways, try to keep the boat still and fan cast as much as you can in that area with that fast moving lure. Now, if you do not get bit within about 10 minutes, kick the trolling motor back on high, or oars, whatever it may be that you're using, and just keep on going. Again, we're trying to efficiently cover water. Now, the one time that I may throw something a little bit slower is if I have like cold front type conditions where maybe the bass aren't going to be wanting something that's moving so fast, even if I got one to bite it, or if it's the spawn. If I know that bass are on beds, I still may throw baits like a frog and a chatterbait or a swim jig to try to get one to bite it. And a lot of times if I get one to bite, then I might slow down and I might spend 10 minutes flipping and pitching in different holes that I can see in that vegetation to see if bass are on beds in a general area. But if I'm not fishing during the spawn or cold fronts, I'm gonna make my fan cast and I'm gonna keep moving. Again, the name of the game is efficiently covering water. And you can do that from a boat, you can do that from the bank. You know, if you're doing it from the bank, you're gonna be just more or less walking down the bank a lot and trying to find little zones where those fish are. And so to me, that is probably the most important thing that you can do when it comes to fishing grass when you don't have electronics, is cover water efficiently. And as soon as you get that one bite, that is when you can kind of slow down. And maybe you have found a school of fish. And then once you kind of catch a few, then you can start to try to duplicate the pattern. Maybe, for example, you found that bass are in a pocket. So you just, instead of fishing other points or something in that area, you just go to the next pocket. Just skip over everything, go to the next pocket, fish the pocket. If you catch another fish, you might be starting to stumble on a pattern. Go to the next pocket, catch another fish, another 2 fish, another 3 fish. Now you've really dialed in a pattern, and now you can just run pockets all day. So the other thing when it comes to grass that is very, very important to understand. So we've talked about eliminating water by seasonal movements of bass. We talked about eliminating water or by covering water efficiently. And the next thing that you should know is that when you get to an area that has a lot of vegetation, there is going to be high percentage areas within that grass. So if you have a big lily pad field and you have a single reed clump within that lily pad field, bam, that's a high percentage area. Maybe you have that same big lily pad field, but you have a couple of big points that shoot out. High percentage area right on that point. Maybe you have an indention in the lily pads or the reeds, whatever it may be, the vegetation that you're fishing. It doesn't really matter what vegetation is, because fish all relate to them fairly similar. If you have maybe a little bit of a pocket, an indention, maybe that's where those fish are. So always look for these high percentage areas. When I'm covering water, like say there's this massive lily pad field or massive reed field, when I'm covering water through that area with my fast moving lures, every time the boat is moving, I'm looking for what is the next closest, highest percentage area that I can see with my eyes. Like I said, maybe it's an isolated clump. Maybe you have a ton of pads up here and you have this random isolated clump. I can almost guarantee that there's gonna be a big fish right there. Maybe, like I said, a point, whatever it may be. When I'm covering water, you look for the high percentage areas, and that's where you're making your cast as you go down. And again, as soon as you get that first bite, I mean one bite, put the brakes on, and that is when you start picking everything apart. Because if you find these areas that have just schools of fish on them, there'll be bass everywhere. There'll be bass way up in the stuff, there'll be bass way on the outside, there'll be bass not only on the points of the cover and in the indentions, they'll be in between that stuff. There'll be bass everywhere at times. And so, but you can't find those if you're not efficiently fishing out there. So guys, that is really what I have to say about fishing emergent vegetation. Vegetation that's coming out of the water. Now, if you are fishing more submergent vegetation, you really do need decent electronics, or you at least need to have some electronics to kind of gauge where the edges are or where maybe holes in the grass are. And I actually did a full video over on BassFishingHQ where I talked about how to go about finding bass in submergent vegetation. I'm gonna leave it right here. So if you really wanna dive deep into that, click on this video next. All right, guys, hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you guys tomorrow.